Hi everybody, I'm Bryan Mudd, a fan of South Plains politics. Here's your talking points for this week. Permitless carry, constitutional carry, whatever you want to call it, it's the law now in Texas, but Lubbock police say please remember the rules. And a lot of school administrators still aren't sure about all the legal rules involving mask mandates for the kids. Can they or can't they?
From the studios of KAMC Television in Lubbock, your local election headquarters. This is Talking Points with Bryan Mudd.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Also this week, where have I heard this before? A law on abortion and restrictions that doesn't ban but severely limits them and isn't enforced by police but by citizen lawsuits. The new Texas law sounds a whole lot like the one voters chose to put in place here in Lubbock, and the U.S. Supreme Court wobbled but said for now we'll allow it. A validation of the work done by folks in Lubbock, even though there's no provision for rape or incest or health of the mother. Abortion rights groups were flabbergasted, and they weren't alone. President Biden clapping back at the Supreme Court decision on this, saying the Texas law unleashes constitutional chaos and empowers self-anointed enforcers to have devastating impacts. Lubbock's congressman thinks this might be the start of an even bigger impact on the whole Roe versus Wade abortion law that's been fought over for decades.
Now that we have a shift in the Supreme Court to constitutional conservatives, I think there's a great chance that you'll see Roe v. Wade overturned, at least to the extent that there'll be delegated authority to the states to make the decisions on how restrictive they want to be on abortion.
There's a Mississippi case that might have a bigger impact, but after a dozen states tried something like this, only the Texas law made it this far. And as KAMC's Monica Madden discovered, this is all about timing. Timing with the makeup of the Supreme Court and the timing of how this law plays alongside a woman's pregnancy.
My body is my own!
On the Capitol steps, pounding frustration.
What Texas is trying to do is to scare people into thinking that they cannot get an abortion.
In other corners of the state, celebration.
We can see the sonogram. We can hear the baby's heartbeat.
We looked at the numbers to understand the difference this new law will make. State data shows nearly all abortions conducted in the first 3 months of 2021 were performed during the first 12 weeks of pregnancy. More than 80% happened within the first 8 weeks. Texas women can still get an abortion before a heartbeat is detected, which can happen as early as 6 weeks.
It's extremely early. It's the equivalent to being 2 weeks late on your period.
Then a person is left with a decision of what to do. We already have an overwhelmed adoption system here.
One expectation is more women going out of state for services. Trust Women Clinic said its facilities in Oklahoma City and Wichita are already seeing an increase of Texas patients. But supporters of the law are hoping other states adopt similar bans.
The pro-life movement is ready to welcome all Texas women who might find themselves in an unexpected or difficult pregnancy.
She points to pregnancy centers like Birth Choice, which offer free services. For now, clinics like Planned Parenthood are focusing on contraception and other women's health services while waiting on pending lawsuits at the federal level. In Austin, Monica Madden,
All right, Monica,
KAMC
thank you.
News.
When we get these sort of larger legal issues, we love the chance to get to talk to Texas Tech law professor Richard Rosen to get some clarity on this. Professor, thanks for being with us here. I guess the first thing a lot of people noticed was that this ruling from the Supreme Court was sent in the middle of the night, more or less. Is that out of the ordinary for the court to do?
Probably. I want to thank you for having me, by the way. But yeah, probably. But it's important to understand that the decision in the case does not assess the constitutionality of the Texas Heartbeat Act. It just refuses to enjoin the statute or lift the stay imposed by the Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit on the district court, which was about to hear a motion for a preliminary injunction to enjoin the law. So 5 of the justices decided that this did not warrant injunctive relief or lifting the stay, basically because of some procedural issues with respect to the statute.
Sure. You know, Justice Sotomayor did not pull a lot of punches in her dissension, though. Maybe a view of what was going on behind the scenes with all of this. And I want your reaction here a little bit. She wrote, and I'm reading this, "It cannot be the case that a state can evade federal judicial scrutiny by outsourcing enforcement of unconstitutional laws to citizenry. A lot going on there. Does she have a point with this?
Yes, I think she does. I mean, in order to evade a preemptive challenge to the statute, the Texas legislature put enforcement, the ability to enforce the act solely in the hands of private citizens. And so I think she's right. This is an end around Roe versus Wade. And it doesn't mean that the statute is any less is any more constitutional because it's done this. I think Sotomayor referred to private citizens being designated bounty hunters to enforce the statute.
It's just interesting. I think all of this. Justice Kagan, in her dissension, said this: the majority decision is emblematic of too much of this court's shadow docket decision making. What do you think she means by shadow docket here?
Well, the fact that this thing got up to Justice Alito, who has oversight over the Fifth Circuit, and it was decided within a few days without full briefing or oral argument. I think this is somewhat unusual. The U.S. Supreme Court could have simply enjoined the act from going into effect and maintained the status quo pending the outcome of the litigation. But it decided not to. So what happens is the act goes into effect.
Yeah, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier. You know, the majority saying that this, and then they stressed in their opinion on this, that it doesn't resolve the substantive claim in the lawsuit to stop the order or the constitutionality of the Texas law here. So this isn't over. Just like someone in Lubbock, it looks like they're waiting for someone to be sued for violating the law, and then they can take a look at the challenge per se to the law. Am I right here?
Yeah, because of Court of Appeals Fifth Circuit precedent, if you don't have a state official who enforces the statute, some governmental official, there generally is no standing to challenge the constitutionality of the statute if it's only going to be enforced by private citizens. And so, yeah, you essentially have to wait until a private citizen brings a lawsuit, which will be in the state court, and the defendants defendants will not be able to remove it to federal court because it's a state cause of action. So state court judges will hear the case.
When that happens too, a U.S. Senator mentioned this week that Justice Kavanaugh once told her that he felt Roe v. Wade was settled law as it is, and which might have some interesting implications for down the road. But regardless, doesn't this ruling, though, go against Roe v. Wade? Because as I understand it legally, you're not supposed to make it too hard for someone to access something that's considered a legal right for them. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely. Any state prohibition of pre-viability abortions before the 22nd to 24th week are unconstitutional, except for state regulations that protect, say, the health of women. You make sure that the facilities are clean, sterile, for example, and to ensure that they get informed consent, that they know what they're doing. So there's no question that this law is flatly unconstitutional. I think the Texas legislators recognize that and use this unusual means, using private citizens to enforce the statute, as a way to get around the constitutional issues. It'll only be temporary because state court judges who will hear these cases are also bound by the Constitution. Article 6 of the Constitution says so. And so I assume they're going to follow the Supreme Court precedent. And ultimately, these lawsuits should go away. The problem is they may be filed all over the state.
It's just fascinating legal stuff. They'll write books on this probably for a long time, but it's interesting to talk to Texas Tech law professor Richard Rosen about that and all these types of things. Professor, thanks so much for being with us. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yep, thank you very much.
And coming up, which new laws made it and which bills didn't, as a frantic legislature finishes a second special session. And we'll continue to follow the money as investors look to change downtown Lubbock into something better. A continuation of our talk with developer and former Mayor Mark McDougal. 5 good minutes with him next on Talking Points.
You're watching Talking Points, a focus on the political scene in Lubbock and across the South Plains.
Welcome back. Here's a look at some of the political headlines of this past week. Lubbock lost one of its most well-known public servants and political movers and shakers with the passing of John Wilkerson. Cancer is a terrible thing, folks. The businessman was the former chair of the City Development Board, the Appraisal District, the Civil Service Commission, as well as heading the Baylor Board of Regents in his lifetime. He was 86. And the Texas legislature got to work in a hurry and wrapped up a second special session a bit early. The governor's priority election integrity bill made it through, of course, and will become law. Same for bail reform, the ban on teaching critical race theory, and that homeless camping ban. But a bill calling for election audits did not make it, and nothing on lowering property taxes. Up next, the redistricting fight. Speaking of new laws, as of the 1st, Texans can now carry a firearm in many public places without getting a license or the training that comes with it. A lot of folks believe that's a constitutional right, but there are still some restrictions on where you can bring a firearm now. KAMC's Ryan Chandler spoke with local gun advocates and Lubbock police about how to follow the law and keep everyone safe.
More freedom with firearms in Texas as the Texas Firearm Act went into effect Wednesday, allowing any legal gun owner to carry a handgun in public without a license.
The Second Amendment gives us a right to constitutional carry, permitless carry. And so there's a lot of people out there who are not interested in taking a government course and that want to carry because they have the right to carry.
But law enforcement stresses with more rights comes more responsibilities.
Just make sure you're responsible, know where you can and can't carry it. Not knowing the law is not an excuse, it's not an exception. You can still be punished. So if you feel like you are responsible to go out and buy a firearm, then it's your responsibility to know when and where you can carry it.
Before Wednesday, gun owners did not need a permit to purchase a handgun and keep it in their home or car. But private businesses and government buildings have the right to prohibit them, license or not. This new law does not change that.
Schools, college campuses, sporting events, hospitals, government buildings, those are all places that you can't carry even if you do have a license. So it's not just a free pass to go buy a gun and you're free to carry it.
And gun rights advocates still support getting your license, or at least training, to use your firearm safely.
Whether that's formal training that you come into the range and take, or you get online and educate yourself there on what the new laws are, where you can carry, and you have a duty to be able to know how to use that firearm properly.
Ryan Chandler, KAMC News.
And Ryan, now we follow the money back into downtown Lubbock. You know, we talked on last week's show about how the new development plans are starting to come together, and now we'll continue our conversation and get the perspective of former Mayor Mark McDougal with a look at just who's investing in downtown and a look at the state of infrastructure in that part of town. Here's 5 more good minutes.
I think from an infrastructure standpoint, downtown's in pretty good shape. There's new water lines, there's new sewer lines. Right. A lot of the utilities, at least along Broadway and Main Street, have gone underground already. There are still a few of those where utilities need to be relocated, but for the most part, we're in pretty good shape now. You know, when you talk about from a master developer standpoint, are there other wants? Absolutely. I mean, it would be great if we could redo every sidewalk downtown. Right. That's not realistic, but I do think that you will see an effort to at least make Broadway and that gateway street into downtown, you know, more uniform from block to block than it is today.
The city and county are talking about now how to spend some federal COVID relief money, and some of this would qualify for that. Am I right?
I believe you're correct.
Yeah,
I believe you're correct.
A lot of people will say follow the money, and we saw a lot of investment here as we've gone and started pushing into South Lubbock and in and around the Loop 88 project, and a lot of money from out of town coming into part of that as part of the investments there. Are we seeing that downtown
Absolutely.
as well?
It's, you know, when we first started this, it was a lot of local investors coming in, or a few, and then it became a lot. But now we're seeing as many, if not more, out-of-town money coming into downtown Lubbock. Metro Tower is a great example of that. The Jailhouse Lofts, which is the old federal building, that's an out-of-town developer, actually out of Tulsa. They've also got another project. Mont and I were on the phone yesterday with a group out of California wanting to build a more traditional apartment in downtown. Now the trick there is finding enough land for it. Right. We can find it if they want to pay for it. It's going to be pretty costly to gather the amount of land they want. But yes, we're seeing that, and part of that is was the Trump tax bill from a couple of years ago that created the Qualified Opportunity Fund downtown.
That was my next question, yeah.
You know, with that investment, just very quickly stated, you invest under a Qualified Opportunity Fund, which you can create downtown. It's in that zone. If you hold it for 10 years, you pay zero capital gains. That's kind of the, so it's a long-term hold, but that is creating a lot of the, you know, more institutional money, some of the bigger money that we're seeing from some of these out-of-town projects that are coming in. What I call the old in-town inn on Main Street,
yeah.
You know, that's another out-of-town group that just got a historical tax credit or some tax credits to redo that property. So we're seeing a lot of that, but a lot of that is coming from out of town now.
I think the last time we talked here, you were part of the governor's COVID strike force to try to help businesses during the pandemic and keep everything going. How's the business climate changed now since everything that's gone on over the last 18 months?
Well, you know, I think in Lubbock, you know, from our business's standpoint, everything is, you know, seems to have recovered well. You know, we're getting a little more of a spike now than we had all hoped that we would get, but we're not really seeing that much of a decline in business. You know, I think it was really great last week to leave my office in downtown and try to get over to Tech for a meeting that took me 30 minutes to get there, for all the U-Haul trucks. And you know, we didn't have that a year ago.
Yeah.
They didn't move in, but the students are back and moving in. And you know, when you've got 40,000 students that hit a community like Lubbock, and that's just at Tech, that doesn't count Lubbock Christian or South Plains College or Wayland Baptist or the other universities that are here. That's a big economic impact and it affects all of our businesses.
Before we go, are you happy with the support from a business standpoint that you're seeing from the city, from the county, from the state at this point?
In downtown?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. The city's been great to work with. The council, and not just this council. This project's gone on now for 1, 2, 3, about 4 mayors, maybe 5, and we've had nothing but support for down there. As I mentioned at the start of the show, it's been a long process. But you're talking about a big area too, and you're not scraping it like we did Overton. So there's a lot more that goes into it, but you're now starting to see the fruits of the labor that have gone in from all the councils past, and you know, from our office working on the project. You know, we can see, we're getting visual success stories out there that everybody can see, and we're seeing a lot more people downtown, even in the evenings now. So with the new restaurants that are down there, and of course, Buddy Holly Hall helps a ton.
No kidding. That's beautiful. If y'all haven't been there, you need to go. He's a busy guy. We always are appreciative when he can take a few minutes for us. Mark McDougal. Good to see you again.
Hey, good to see you. Appreciate you having me.
And straight ahead, didn't the governor say Texas schools couldn't force the kids to wear masks even with COVID blowing up again? But the court said something different, at least for some districts. Now, one local district may challenge Mr. Abbott too. That's next on Talking Points. Although COVID is once again a loud part of life in our state, South Plains school districts have been quiet in challenging the governor's mandate that there would be no mask mandate in Texas schools. Until now, because all the cases in Hale County, Plainview ISD students may soon be required to wear masks. Superintendent H.T. Sanchez sent a letter to parents stating that because of the surge, the district has set up what they call an intervention plan. Right now, masking is still voluntary, but if one of their campuses reaches a 6% or higher infection rate, Sanchez says masks will be required. So can they actually do this? Well, some Texas districts have challenged the governor in court and won, leading to word that no one would actually enforce the governor's order. But the Texas Education Commissioner says this will need to be decided by the courts at some point. Although Commissioner Mike Morath also told our Wayne Carter he just wants the kids engaged and in class.
What are you going to do?
Sarah Mesford pulled her sons William and Henry out of Fort Worth ISD, so angry and dismayed about the lack of a mask mandate in school and the rising number of cases of children infected with coronavirus.
I am baffled at the fact that that it's even debatable. I think that masks need to be required. I think that we need to continue to social distance.
The argument has pitted some parents and school leaders against Governor Greg Abbott, who ordered masks not to be required in government buildings, including schools. But the man in charge of schools in Texas, Commissioner Mike Morath, hasn't really waded into this pool until we spoke with him at TEA headquarters in Austin.
So this issue has got a lot of folks fired up. It's currently, being litigated in the courts.
Morath said the court cases need to play out and will ultimately decide the fate of masks, but says in the meantime, he's watching it.
Where do we see studies on it that have proven one thing or another? What does our own evidence say in Texas schools, in classrooms?
Sarah Nesbitt says the evidence is there. Medical professionals, children's hospitals, etc., all saying the mandates make sense. She says it's just getting the state and the school leaders to buy in.
I think it's baloney. I, for one, believe in science. I trust the medical field.
That's Wayne Carter reporting, and we'll be back with a final word. Hope you're having a great holiday weekend. Don't forget, city and county government offices will be closed tomorrow for Labor Day. We hope you have a great holiday. Next week, we'll continue our look at new Texas laws and how they affect you. Don't forget to send us a comment on our KAMC News Facebook page and everythinglubbock.com. Just click weekly features and then talking points to stream this and many of our past shows. And that's all of our time. For all of us on Talking Points, we thank you for watching, and we'll see you right here again next week.